I'm here to tell you, no, to alert you to the extraordinary return on investment in high-quality preschool. I'm going to tell you about the HighScope preschool study, a study that I've been involved with for my whole career. I'm going to talk about its childhood effects and how through those childhood effects it has effects on adults, and how through those childhood and adult effects it has an extraordinary return on investment. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what other studies say, how there are other studies that have replicated these findings of long-term effects and return on investment, and then how there are other studies of typical programs, Head Start programs and others, that have not found such powerful short-term effects as to suggest that they would have these long-term effects. And then I want to talk about what's the difference between those two sets of studies, and indeed, what are the special ingredients that are required in early childhood programs in order to have them become highly effective programs with long-term effects and return on investment. Educational research is around because education, important as it is not always as it seems. We can look at programs that look like the best programs in the world, and they have almost zero effects on children. We can look at programs that look like mediocre programs, and they can have extraordinary effects on children. And we all know the roots of all of this, and that is you can look like you're paying attention when you're not really paying attention. That's really the roots of all educational research, right there in a phrase. Well, I've been an educational researcher, specifically an early childhood educational researcher, for 37 years. In all of that time, I've been working on one study, keep working to get it right, the HighScope preschool study. It actually began even before I came to it in 1962. It began, I started with the program in 1975. Over all of those years, it maintained very high standards of data collection, so we collect all but 5% of the available data. No missing data, to speak of, very little. It began with it focused on children living in poverty, and it began with a random assignment design. Very simple thing that's easy to understand. Think of flipping a coin, and if the coin goes heads, one group, tails, the other group, you get pretty much two equivalent groups that way. Our approach was a little more complicated. In fact, we didn't do perfect random assignment, but we've been working with Professor James Heckman, the Nobel Prize-winning Nobel laureate economist at the University of Chicago, and we've dealt with all of the imperfections in our design and have a lot of confidence that what I'm about to tell you is about as clearly true as science can make anything true. So we began with that. We put one of the groups in a preschool program that was a program different from what a lot of us think of as education. We're all used to teacher-directed instruction. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now, teacher-directed instruction. You don't get a chance to say much, right? But I'm doing all the talking, and you're supposed to be listening. I'm not talking about that for early childhood education. What I'm talking about is much more like a conversation, where you've got two people listening and talking to each other, taking turns back and forth. The HighScope curriculum, which we developed in the preschool program, was at root a conversational program that involved teacher-child, adult-child interaction, parent-child interaction that was giving children some degree of control over what they were doing. They were taking part in designing their own learning experiences. And we think that's one of the things very important to the long-term results. We also focused on all of child development, literacy, mathematics, but also things like executive function, social-emotional learning, and other things that are very important to the development of character and responsibility and the things that are really important to carry us through life. So we had that design, and that led to these kinds of effects. These are the childhood effects. First of all, we found that only 1/3 of the kids, not even 1/3 of the kids who did not have the preschool program were ready for school. About 38% of them were committed to school, and only 15% of them had a basic level of achievement at age 14 on the California Achievement Test. With the program, it looked like this. You can see that the percentage of children ready for school doubled. The percentage of children committed to school was significantly higher. That's things like doing homework, having a better attitude towards school, talking to your parents about what you did at school that day. I think the glue that held the program effects together through those years was essentially the commitment to schooling that interplayed with the achievement back and forth. Commitment raised achievement, achievement raised commitment, commitment raised achievement, and so on and so forth in a positive cycle, whereas oftentimes, too often, it's a negative cycle that goes in the other direction. And then as you can see, the basic achievement at 8th grade was substantially higher. About half of the group that had the preschool program had a basic level of achievement at age 14 at 8th grade. That led to these adult effects. We're looking at high school graduation, a basic level of earnings, or being arrested 5 or more times. And you can see the dismal statistics there for the group that did not have the preschool program. 60% of them graduated from high school. 40% earned $20,000 or more. And 55% were arrested 5 or more times. That statistic itself, by the way, is extraordinary. These children were selected because they were at risk of school failure. And on that criterion, we could find lifetime later that most of them had been arrested 5 or more times. Scary. Here's what we got with the preschool program. A higher high school graduation rate, greater earnings, that was at age 27, again at age 40, and arrested 5 or more times was reduced from 55% down to 36%. All of those were significant effects. All of those were lifetime effects. I don't know which, maybe the arrest rate is the most important because it's so hard to change crime, to reduce crime, and we pay so much for crime. Victims pay for crime. Society pays for crime. We all pay for crime because of imprisonment and all the other costs associated with crime. If you can reduce it, you can cut all those costs. And what all of these effects did then was to lead to the return on investment, maybe the best known findings of the HighScope preschool study. You can see the program cost at the bottom. It's about $12,000 a year. Some people would say that's too much. But the alternative is not nothing. It's not pay it or not pay it. It looks like that's the choice. But the actual choice is to spend that money or to spend that other great big income stream there, which is all of the taxpayer costs that go into children who did not receive the preschool program. Higher costs for schooling because more children had to be treated for mental impairment. Higher earnings because people had better paying jobs in the preschool program group. Because they had higher paying jobs, they paid more in taxes. But maybe most importantly, as I said before, was the costs of crime and justice for the control group. Enormous costs of crime and justice, which were substantially reduced by participation in the preschool program. As you can see, that effect alone is many times as great as the program cost, but you even remove that big effect, and you still got a program that has returns much, much greater than the preschool program cost. The findings we had at age 40 were $16 return for every dollar. Heckman's work points to a slightly lower figure, and I sometimes think about it, it's like it matters whether it's a $7 return or a $16 return. It's so large. It pays off so many times. If it paid off $1 for every dollar, it would probably be worth doing for humanitarian reasons. $2 for every dollar, it's a no-brainer. This is $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 return on a dollar. Why are we not doing this? We're doing it sometimes, but we're not really achieving high-quality programs, even when we have the opportunity. We do half-hearted measures and think we're being economical. That's a funny word to use here, isn't it? Economical. Because the return on investment dissipates if you don't really reach the standards of high quality. In any case, that's where we are right now. Not all programs are highly effective. There have been several other preschool programs that have been subjected to longitudinal study. Model programs, the Abecedarian program in North Carolina is one. Chicago Child Parent Centers, obviously in Chicago, is another. There have been a couple of state programs that have found long-term effects. We've done one with the Great Start Readiness Program in Michigan. So there's evidence that this is an achievable finding. This is not something that's just out there, happened once, never going to happen again. This can be achieved right now with programs that are operating right now. But, and here's the bad news, studies of typical Head Start programs and state pre-K programs, specifically a program study called the Head Start Impact Study, and another of 5 state pre-K programs, found modest effects that were not so large that we would truly expect long-term effects and return on investment. So what do we do about this? We know it's out there. Hey, the same thing would have been true for the gold rush in California. If you'd gone out and found the gold, you'd come back and tell all the folks, crazy prospector, hey, I found gold in the hills. And somebody else goes and looks next to it, doesn't find any gold, and comes back and says, I had no gold in the hills. Well, we know the gold's out there. We got to go find it. So how do you do that? In a phrase, to get what we got, you got to do what we did. It's kind of catchy, isn't it? To get what we got, do what we did. And what we did, very specifically, what we think is responsible for the long-term effects are special ingredients that have to be present in preschool programs in order to truly expect long-term effects and return on investment. One is certified and or well-supervised teachers. This is not only from the Perry study, but from the other studies. Teachers have to be qualified. Put it simply, something everybody can easily agree with. Teachers need to know what they're doing. Plumbers need to know what they're doing. Electricians need to know what they're doing. So do teachers. Early childhood teachers need to know what they're doing, and they get that by good professional preparation, both pre-service and in-service. They need a child development curriculum of proven effectiveness. The one that we used that was proven effective was the HighScope curriculum, which focused on children and teachers in conversation with each other, children and parents in conversation with each other, learning how to take initiative and to take responsibility for their actions. You need to have systematic engagement of parents. Parents need to be partners with teachers, not watching what the teachers are doing and backing off, but entering in. Everybody's raising children. Teachers are helping parents raise children. They need to be engaged and learn to approach kids the same empowering way so that they can be empowered throughout their lives. And finally, and I think critical to where we are throughout the society right now, is the teachers need the feedback from assessment of programs and children. We haven't been doing that in Head Start programs. Sometimes we haven't been doing it in state pre-K programs. Child care programs, we almost never do it. You need feedback because of the trick that I was just talking about. The fact that you can have programs that are contributing to child development and you don't know if they are or not. So you have to measure that. Now measurement, there's lots of issues with measuring correctly, and it's important to do the right kind of interactive child development measurement. But it is absolutely critical for teachers and administrators and policymakers and parents and all the rest of us to have feedback to know that teachers are on the right track and doing the right kinds of programs for young children. If we do those things, we have the potential for seizing the prize, that extraordinary return on investment. This one's pretty predictable. Sometimes you never know when you're going to get a return on investment. This time we do know, and we know we got to follow these rules. We can't compromise. We can't subject us to the political process and say, well, we'll do half of it and maybe it'll happen. We have to do it just the way we were talking about. And if we do that and have high-quality programs, then we will have highly effective programs that produce long-term effects and strong return on investment. Thank you.